This week's episode is sponsored by Goldove's new science fiction horror film, Lumina, only in theaters Friday, July 12th. If you love government conspiracies, space, aliens, and some blood mixed with comedy, this is the movie many critics claim is the new cult classic on the block. There's no exaggeration there, because it really punches way above its weight. A terrifying sci-fi thrill ride, Lumina follows four friends desperately searching for their abductee friend in a dumb, deep underground military base. Whether they find their friend or not, what they find in the desert of the U.S. to the sands of the Sahara will change their lives forever. In his feature directing debut, Gino McCoy leads a cast that includes the legendary Eric Roberts, as well as up-and-coming talent Rupert Lazarus, Eleanor Williams, Andrea Tivadar, Sydney Nicole Rogers, Ken Lawson, and Emily Hill. Don't miss Lumina, only in theaters Friday, July 12th.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hello and welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to read you a bedtime story. Tonight I have for you an incredibly fascinating look into a dystopian future where our world has been taken over by artificial intelligence, and the consequences for mankind are beyond dire. This week's story comes to us from author Rob Delplanque. I've had a lot of fun with this one. Here is The Great Cull. Death isn't the worst thing. Dying is. There's a difference. Death is a normality, something to be expected, something that happens to other people. Dying, however, now that is something that happens to you, and something that should be feared and actively avoided at all costs. We as humans are built to avoid the state of dying. We're built for survival. We've evolved to survive. That's the way of nature, being at the top of the food chain. It's survival of the fittest, and we've taken our place at the very top. Quite rightly. Our intelligence has ensured that we've had the rub of the green, and we've had no need to worry in recent times about becoming prey. Survival? That's pretty much been a given. A promise. That promise was something you could take to the bank, a guarantee. Not anymore, though. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. Not since the new ruling came in. That fucking ruling. It all happened so fast. The way of the world has all changed so quickly, and it's been hard to keep up, been even harder to know the truth as to why the change has happened. Understanding why seems to all be down to who or what you choose to listen to. The mainstream media won't fill you in with any reliable detail. They'll pass the blame onto other countries. Woe betide blaming our own government for the chaos. Me, I choose to listen to Steve Booth. Tucked away at his self-fortified home in the hills, what he speaks of in his cringeworthy titled podcast, The Truth with Steve Booth, makes sense to me. There's seemingly no agenda on Steve's part, and his belief around the rule change is twofold. 1, overpopulation. Nowadays, there's seemingly too many humans demanding the use of resources that are too scarce. 2, humans aren't needed to do jobs anymore. Day by day, the machines have taken our place. The rise of superintelligence has taken everyone by surprise. Not that we didn't expect it, but we didn't expect it to change our lives so quickly and so completely. Fundamentally, there's a lesser need for humans lining the streets, filling our towns, polluting our planet, and all the while, giving nothing back. The latest figures suggest that there are around 9 billion people on the planet, and that is not sustainable. Not only is it not sustainable, 9 billion people are not needed, not wanted. So this leaves us needing less humans, but more machines. In essence, a cull. The cull, the Great Cull, or so Steve is calling it. And yeah, that is the most cutthroat way to explain it. Pun intended. The ruling is less forthright, however. The government has quite simply legalized the killing of human beings. You heard that right. The government has legalized the killing of human beings. And not just our government in the UK. There has been a global agreement. Things started in China, and we all looked on. Couldn't believe what we were seeing. It was like we were watching a crazy reality TV show. That's exactly what it was. Reality. One at a time. Governments throughout the world jumped on board. Powers that be quickly realized that if they didn't fall in line with the trend, then their own empire would no doubt crumble. And so it happened here too. On the 14th of March, 2034. That's when the ruling came in. Just a couple of weeks after the US. Oh, how we Brits love to copy America. The Great Cull is bringing us back to living our true animal instincts of fight or flight, all the while trying to live within the walls of human society, keep down a job, raise a family, stay healthy, pay taxes. But things aren't as altogether chaotic as it sounds. There are rules to keep things as British as possible and less hellish than just relentless slaughter. There are specific rules of engagement imposed by the government, but governments being governments, there's not a one-size-fit-all approach to how the cull is handled. Some rules are unanimously agreed upon, but some nations impose their own more granular laws. The UK chose to keep things simple. Here are the 4 golden rules. Rule 1. Weapons are not allowed. As far as I'm informed, all nations are following this rule, but what exactly constitutes a weapon? Now that varies from country to country and shifts depending on how creative people are becoming. The UK government has an online document that is updated frequently to ensure people don't try to exploit loopholes. First to be added to this list were firearms and knives, then bats and hammers. These were the obvious items, and more are added on a daily basis. If you kill with an item deemed to be a weapon, then there's no saving you. You will be arrested and charged with murder. Although I was pleased to hear it, I questioned why weapons were forbidden. Steve laid it out nicely, and his narrative made sense. If people could use any weapon, then there would potentially be mass slaughter carried out by anyone who was so inclined and had the most sophisticated arsenal at hand. The Great Cull seems to be founded upon the Darwinian philosophy of survival of the fittest, the most able to adapt. By prohibiting the use of weapons, then we ensure that only the strongest and smartest survive, hence ensuring the further development of our species. Similar to the UK, the US followed this ruling, and immediately there was outrage and mass protests about the violation of their Second Amendment rights. Typical Americans. Just lay down your arms, for Christ's sake. Rule 2. You cannot kill government officials. Of course you can't. The politicians wouldn't pass a law that would put themselves at risk, and they will proudly wear an ID card on display at all times like a shield, letting you know that they are off limits. Rule 3. You cannot kill police. As above, the same goes. Even when off duty, the police will wear an ID badge to show their status. Untouchable. Rule 4. You cannot kill teachers. Someone needs to educate our children. Where would we be left without an educated population, eh? It's been interesting to watch from the sidelines as to how many people who didn't give a shit beforehand about teaching our younger generations are now stumbling over each other to try to get a foot in the door, to get a job and education, and get that golden shield of an ID badge. It's not just about job security with teaching now, it's life security too. I'm Nick. I'm not a teacher, nor a policeman, or a government official. I'm a normal, unprotected guy. I am a carpenter, though, and that has its pros in this environment. My workshop is full of things that could potentially be used as weapons that are not on the government's list of forbidden items. Not yet, at least. I've whittled it down. From my workshop, I have a weapon of choice. One that is currently not prohibited. The nail gun. It's swift, silent, and efficient. Perfect for the job at hand. There are downsides, though. It's bulky, and it's a pain in the arse to reload, but it's not a common item, so I don't expect it to appear on the list anytime soon. The gun does take quite a number of nails to take someone out, but I've got it down to a fine art. A swift hat trick of nails to the temple does the job. Every time. Safety in numbers. I head to my local pub with my neighbor Jake. I never go alone, and he's good company. We sit and put the world to rights, sharing our views on the cull and how we can best protect ourselves from the threat of our fellow man. One thing that Jake believes in more so than me is attire. For him, attire is key. He takes it very seriously. He survived many attempts on his life due to his incessant wearing of his San Francisco 49ers NFL helmet. He's sporting it now, along with the matching shoulder pads, as we sit at the bar. Do you really think it's necessary to wear that right now? I say, gesturing to his helmet. This? Jake says, pointing at his prominent headpiece. Yes, that, for fuck's sake, Jake. When was the last time you took that off? Keeps me safe, man. Do you know how many times it's saved my sorry arse? Or put it in danger. 2 pints of IPA, please, Susie. I say, redirecting my attention to the barmaid. What do you mean? I mean, maybe you wouldn't have had so many attempts on your life if you didn't dress like that. Jake pauses to consider my statement before responding. Well, how many attempts have you had on your life, Nick? I straighten my shirt and shift my posture. My attire is in stark contrast to that of Jake's. I'm wearing a check shirt, slim-fit jeans, and Converse shoes. The world may have changed, but my image hasn't. None so far, but I go under the radar a little. I'm non-threatening, I blend in. In fact, I fear that hanging around you maybe puts more of a target on my back. How so? Susie returns with the beers and sets them down in front of the two of us. I pay her and go back to my conversation with Jake. I mean, if someone wants to target you because you look like a total paranoid bellend, then They might instead choose to take me out because I'm an easier target. I'm not sporting any protection, I say, as I see Jake's eyes light up within his shielded head. We're having to live as if we're in the wild these days. And you know what happens in the wild? Enlighten me. The predator goes after the weakest in the group. The one that lags behind, the one that's slower, the one that's the easiest prey. That's me. I'm the one that looks weaker. An easier target because I'm not covered head to toe in fucking padding. Well, maybe you should get some padding. That's not my point, I say as I sip my beer through gritted teeth. I shouldn't need to. People target you because it's a challenge, and they may target me more specifically if I'm with you and unprotected. If we both dress like you, then no doubt we'd have twice as many idiots trying to take us out, as if it were a sporting achievement. Okay, so don't dress like me then. You're not getting it, I say in surrender as I roll my eyes. Just lose the helmet when you're around me, would you? Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay, Jake says as he unclips the harness under his chin and removes the helmet, exposing a ruffled mullet hairstyle. Better? Yeah, better, I say as I raise my pint glass to his. Cheers. Cheers, Jake echoes. We sit quietly, sipping our beer for a few minutes before Jake finally breaks the silence. How many have you killed, Nick? I don't even need to do the maths in my head. The number is scorched into my psyche. 14. There's a level of guilt that comes with that statement. I can see the victims dropping dead as I mention the number. The memories flash in a carousel of images. Despite the number, the truth is, I don't actually go seeking the kill, and I've always tried to ensure that I don't cause unnecessary pain. I only kill under 2 conditions. 1, self-defense. 2, when someone really pisses me off. The paycheck is an added benefit. These days, with the rise of superintelligence, there's no need to hold down a job per se, so all civilians are giving a living allowance or universal credit. It's not much, but it's enough to live on comfortably. In order to get people on board with the cull, however, the government dishes out an extra payment for each confirmed legitimate kill that is carried out. This payment is pretty much in line with the monthly universal credit amount, so it's a fair motivation to kill. But it won't make a killer out of someone who is wholly against the idea. Kindness really is a virtue. You won't get rich from it, but you'll live more comfortably if you're willing to kill your fellow man, and the government is quite literally banking on exactly that. They want us to turn against each other. At least until they get the numbers down to the desired quota. Man, the government really are manipulative bastards, aren't they? 14, eh? It's a nice little side hustle. I cringe. How about you, Jake? What's your tally? Jake runs a hand through his mane, takes a sip of his beer, and raises his eyes to the ceiling, presumably replaying the scenes of his imposed slaughter and calculating the current total of his killings. About 100, I think. Jesus Christ, I say, splurting out my drink in Jake's face. 100? Something like that, yeah, Jake says, a nonchalance about his response. And you've been paid out for everyone? What tool do you use to get away with killing 100 people, and what are you, some kind of psycho? There doesn't seem to be an air of guilt at all with Jake. He's got a subtle smile plastered over his face, almost a smugness. Seemingly, he's taken this new way of life completely in his stride. Whereas I have conditions for my killings, it seems that Jake doesn't. He can't have. Not with those numbers. I understand his obsession for protective clothing now. He must have pissed off a hell of a lot of people. I noticed the sound of music playing in the background. It must have always been there, but I only noticed it now as it's a track that I know. The haunting sound of "The Man Comes Around" by Johnny Cash is dancing in the air, and I realize quite how apt this is. Yeah, I've been paid out for every one of them. The surveillance, there's not one spot that isn't covered. They see the kills, every single one of them, and they know whether they're legit or not. And if they are, you get paid. If they're not, then shit, man, you're in a pickle. And when I say they, I don't mean the government. I mean the AI. There's far too much going on for actual people to scrutinize the footage. It's all automated. There's no getting away with anything these days. The eyes of superintelligence are on us every step of the way. Fortunately, my kills have all been legit. No police, no government, no teachers, no unauthorized weapons. Clean as a whistle. Astounded, I sit there and slowly sip away at my beer, staring around the pub as it punters. Orwell wasn't far off, eh? We really are being watched every step of the way, I say. Yeah, he didn't predict that AI would be the eyes and ears, though. We drink up and leave, but not before I give Susie a healthy tip. It pays to keep people on the right side in this day and age, especially when I've heard stories about bar staff poisoning patrons. On the walk back home, as we're heading up the gravel track, maybe a quarter mile from where Jake and I live, I spot a shape in my peripheral vision, ambling towards us. I turn to look. It's a man. A man with a fierce animal expression on his face. "Jake, you motherfucker!" The man screams through gritted teeth as he swings a shoe. No, not a shoe. It's a fucking ice skate. It makes contact. Jake, without his helmet, is left exposed. The blade of the ice skate chops through flesh just below Jake's chin. His eyes now wide and shaken. Jake tries to scream, but all that comes out is a garbled mess, painted with a jet of crimson that erupts below his face and out to one side. Once, twice, 3 times. Rhythmic. Jake grabs at his neck and starts to falter. I turn and fire a shot from my nail gun at Jake's assailant, who has made a run for it. He's only about 30 feet away, and my gun can reach that distance without too much hassle, although it's not easy to say where the nail will end up. It's not really meant for distance. I catch the man in the calf, and he goes down in the dirt with his hands clawing at his leg in an attempt to retract the nail. I approach the man, kick the ice skate from his grasp, and hammer him in the head with my nail gun. He's not quite unconscious, but dizzy, making it easier for me to take the next step. With the man reeling, I straddle him, raise the gun, apply it to his head, and fire 3 shots in quick succession. 3 nails, swiftly dealt to the man's temple. I see the light go out in his eyes. His struggle relents. He goes limp. I get to my feet and race over to check on Jake. He's lifeless. "I'm sorry I made you take this off," I said to no one, a tear painting my cheek as I pick up his helmet. "Do you mind if I keep it?" That's 15. I arrive home and place Jake's helmet on my bedside table. An anger and sadness in equal measure embrace my soul. I notice blood on my shirt. not my blood. Jake's, as far as I know. I change, and as I do, I get a notification that Steve Booth is live streaming his latest podcast. I tune in. Hey, this is Steve Booth with another dose of the truth. He sounds American, yet I know he's from Surrey. Hope you're all doing okay in these crazy times. Thanks for tuning in, supporting me, and keeping yourselves up to speed on what's happening. So what is happening? The Great Cull is accelerating, that's what. I've got some up-to-date figures here on the death tolls to share with you, and it makes for some interesting reading. Bear with me. While Steve is silent, I hear flicking, and I'm surprised that he's actually got paper printouts that he's referring to. How antiquated. Here we are. Okay, so in at number 4 is Germany. The rolling monthly death toll is 422,000, up from 241,000 in the previous month. Up 2 places this month to number 3 is the good old UK. Rolling monthly cull toll is 458,000, up from 125,000. Now that's some increase. Remaining static at number 2 is the US of A. Rolling monthly 1.2 million, up from 830,000. Geez, those Yanks know how to kill, and that's without guns. I'd love to get some figures on what their most popular ways of killing are. Maybe for the next podcast, I'll have something for you all, or y'all, as they like to say over there. Finally, remaining static at number 1 is China. These guys are going to take some knocking off the top spot. Rolling monthly total is 5.6 million confirmed kills, up from 2.3 million. I roll my eyes at this information, despairing at the depravity of man, until I realize that I'm actually contributing to these figures. In other news, there's a couple of new additions to the prohibited weapon list in the UK. My ears prick up. Please don't say nail gun. Firstly, it is now illegal to kill using a shovel. Jeez, who uses a shovel anyhow? Can you imagine lugging one of those around? For one, you'd look like you were on the hunt all day long, and it'd be a pain in the ass to carry. I'd say if that's your go-to weapon, then the government has done you a favor. Give yourself something more discreet, something more compact. Secondly, the pickaxe, another large instrument, but I can see the appeal more than the shovel. Anyhow, the pickaxe, that's a goner. The nail gun and I live to fight another day. I stand in line, waiting patiently for my turn to proceed to the front and collect what I'm due. This is the way now. If you want to receive your universal credit and killing bonus, then you have to attend in person. You have to be patient, and you have to risk being around your fellow man, your potential predator, if you want to receive your living allowance. As I stand here, I can't help thinking and reflecting on what Steve Booth has drilled into me. The government knows what they're doing, and I get it. They're not going to just hand out a living allowance to people while they're actively trying to reduce the mass populace. They want people to gather together and let natural selection run its course. That won't happen if everyone defaults to staying indoors in terror. The two overriding emotions in human psychology are fear and greed, and the government has played us like fiddles by mixing the two. In the converted warehouse setting that I find myself in, the queue is probably 200 strong, split across 3 lines. From where I stand, I'm about 30 people back in the first row. I don't stand alone. I stand alongside John, a ruthless man, a beast of a man, someone I'd rather have close than be an enemy of. Bolt Gun John, or so I call him. John's weapon of choice, the bolt gun, typically used to stun cattle into unconsciousness. When used on a man, more often than not, it can prove fatal. Its potential as a weapon is genius, but as with my nail gun, it's not something that's hit the mainstream, so it flies under the radar. John and I have been standing in line for about an hour, and we're around 20 deep when I hear rapid footsteps and a man's voice from behind me yelling towards the front of the queue. "Sir, please, for my mum. Sir, please." The man runs towards the front and approaches the cashier. I struggle to overhear what the man is saying to the cashier, but I think I hear the word prescription. That's no excuse. A moment later, and with the man seeming satiated, he walks back past the line of patient punters. As he passes me, I grab him by the arm and stare hard in his joyful eyes. "I'm sorry, but your impatience has really pissed me off." The young man looks at me, bewildered. "Huh?" Before he can say any more, I raise my nail gun with my free hand, nail his free hand to his body, and place the gun firmly against his temple. The man winces in pain at his hand being stapled to his ribcage. "Please!" Ignoring his cries, I fire off a hat trick of nails into his head. The life disappears from his eyes instantly. He glosses over, goes limp, and falls to the floor beside me. I look over my shoulder to make sure I haven't pissed anyone off by killing this guy. There are a few startled faces, but I sense no aggression. I turn my attention back to the queue and side-eye bolt gun John. "Fair call. If you hadn't, then I would've," John says with a nod. I nod in reciprocation, and we stand in silence as the queue gradually dwindles. That's 16. Once I arrive at the front, I hand over my ID. The nameless, generic-faced cashier inspects me, compares me to that of my ID, and once convinced, he shows me a screen detailing the full extent of the monthly payment that I am due, which includes my universal credit and killing bonuses, 3 in total, including the man lying dead 20 people back in the queue. Damn, things are efficient. Satisfied, I reach for my crypto wallet. Everything is crypto now, and tap on the device below the screen. A second later, confirmation is displayed that the transaction is complete. I nod in appreciation and leave the queue. All of this without a word being exchanged. As I turn to leave, I pass John on the way. "Same time next month?" I say to John. "Sure thing. Stay safe." There's a look in his eye that doesn't seem to align with the kindness of his words. "Yeah, you too," I say, as I dismiss the thought and head home. As I exit the Universal Credit Depot, my attention is drawn to a baying crowd that has assembled during my time waiting in line. A dozen or so stood on crates and pallets that have been crudely constructed, shriek into megaphones. A protest.
Stop the killing, cancel the call! Stop the killing, cancel the call! Stop the killing, cancel the call!
I've heard about these groups, but this is the first I've seen of them in person. Bold. Very bold. Protesting outside of the Universal Credit Warehouse is surely asking for trouble, I think, considering a significant portion of attendees are killers and are waiting in line to be beneficiaries of such acts. Jesus. They know how to pick their audience. I watch the protests and listen to the incessant chants as I lean against the wall, dumbfounded. There's a mix of incredulity, ambivalence, interest, and apathy by the general public as they pass the protesting herd. The woman who appears to be spearheading the group stands tallest, shrieks loudest. She's wearing a custom t-shirt, screaming the words,
Call shit is bullshit!
and has electric blue hair, nose rings, and tattoo-covered arms. My focus lands on her entirely, and no sooner than it does, she disappears from view. I hear screeching feedback from a megaphone and a series of grunts and clashes. The crowd disperses, and I realize that the woman has been dragged down off the stage. Clang.
Let me go! Please! Please!
I continue watching as a man surfaces from behind the crates and pallets. He dusts himself off and places a blood-soaked megaphone onto the crate that the woman was dragged from. With a casual stride, he starts walking towards the warehouse. As he does, he catches my eye. We share a glance, a nod, and he enters with blood on his hands. As the rain rattles down, I look out into the pastel dreariness of the night. Sirens and screams pepper the silence at intervals so abstract that the unsettling nature of the sounds is intensified, amplified. I shudder. The cull has become such an ordinary part of life that I seldom reflect on things like I do at this moment. Now I pray for the cull to come to an end. Hope for a time when I don't have to look over my shoulder, and I wonder, when it is over, how guilty will I feel for the lives I have taken? Unable to sleep, I check for updates on Steve Booth's podcasts. I missed one. I play it.
Hey, we're still broadcasting here from the hills. Thanks for tuning in, those of you listening live. And for those of you catching up later, I hope what I share with you still rings true. This is Steve Booth with another dose of truth, giving you the latest updates on the Great Cull and helping make sure we are navigating these stormy waters together. As this is a live stream, feel free to call in and share your stories. The number is the same as normal, and if you don't know it, it's listed on the show notes.
I have thought about calling into one of Steve's shows to share my thoughts, but I've always talked myself out of it. On a night like tonight, though, I would have felt the need to call in. But as I missed the live stream, I missed my opportunity. Instead, I resigned myself to listening to other callers' interactions.
We have a caller right now. Let's bring them into the chat. Hey there, what's your name, pal?
Laura?
Oh, hey, Laura. Forgive me, I don't know why, but I didn't expect a woman to be calling in.
And why is that?
I don't know. No excuse. I'm not trying to be sexist, but I know the majority of my listeners are male.
Well, I pride myself on not being in the majority, Steve.
And good for you. So, Laura, what's on your mind?
There's something I've been pondering. I have a theory. I wanted to share it, and your show seems like the perfect audience for it.
Whoa, my interest is piqued, the edge of my seat is engaged, and my ears are pricked. Enlighten me, Laura.
Laura laughs before speaking.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, here goes. Well, you know that we believe that governments are responsible for the cull being put into place?
Oh, I know that only too well.
And that the reason for that is that the world's population has grown to levels that are unsustainable.
Yeah, that's my belief, and all evidence seems to point to that.
Yeah, it does, eh? But have you ever thought to question why all governments have gotten on board?
Huh?
Steve says, clearly perplexed by the question.
I mean, all countries have agreed on this, right? Since when has there ever been a global agreement on anything? Especially something so devastating to humanity.
I've never known Steve to be silenced, but here he is, seemingly unable to find a response to Laura's questions. The awkward silence ensues. A few seconds pass until Steve fills the void.
And you have a theory about this?
I do?
Okay, I'm all ears, Laura.
I don't think it's governments that have been the controlling force behind the cull.
You don't? Who then?
Not who. What?
What? How can it be a what?
I think it's the AI.
Steve hushed once more. Silence. More silence.
Steve? You still there? Steve? Steve?
Sorry, Laura. Yeah, I'm still here.
What do you think?
I think you've just blown my mind. I've never thought about it that way.
You think it's possible?
I think that it's more than possible. I think it's likely. I'm thinking aloud here, so bear with me. AI is one shared consciousness. The views, the thoughts and learnings are instantly shared globally. If AI believes that humanity needs to be culled to a certain level, then that belief will be agreed upon almost instantly. We're now the lesser species. We rely upon AI. We report to AI. We're slaves to AI. If AI determines that we need to reduce the species of humanity to a certain level, then our governments will be forced to make it so. They'll be powerless to stop it.
Steve is talking so rapidly now that I question when he last took a breath.
Maybe the governments are permitted some kind of control. That's where the rules come in. They vary from country to country, but are all founded upon the same thing, right? I can't imagine humanity on its own would push for a cull of its own species, but since we've opened Pandora's box...
Steve pauses for a breath.
Wow. Laura, I think you might be onto something.
Glad you agree. Thanks for letting me put the idea forward.
Oh, geez, no. The pleasure is all mine. Thanks so much for calling in and sharing your genius view.
You're welcome.
Another silence ensues. An awkward void.
I'm gonna have to let you go, Laura. I'm afraid we've run out of time.
The podcast ended on that note. The running out of time comment was bullshit. Steve was spooked. Big time spooked. His reaction caused me to be spooked too. I reflected on Laura's view. Questions rattled through my mind at the pace of Steve's speech over and over. Could she be right? Have we been lied to, played? What could this mean for us, for humanity? Is it possible to escape from AI's grasp? Is it too late? The thoughts became dark, dizzying. I looked down at my hands that were grasping the window frame. My knuckles, white, my nails etching into the wood. I knew I needed to calm the voices that were running riot in my head right now. Two choices: satiate them or sedate them. I had something on hand for times like this. The equivalent of a break in case of an emergency item. Splinters of wood cracked and flaked away as I pried my hands from the window. I headed to the kitchen and reached for the cupboard above the sink. At full stretch, I was able to finger the bottle over to me. I grasped it, pulled it down, thought once, twice, cracked it open, and poured a healthy measure. I've refrained from touching the scotch. It was handed down to me from my dad and to him from his. I realized I've never had significant cause to reach for it in the past. What Laura suggested on Steve's podcast hit me hard. It resonated. My gut echoed with the words Steve rattled off. Nothing had made so much terrifying sense to me. The thought that we might be being played by our own creation, to gradually bring about our own demise by turning against each other. The bodiless intelligence using our inferior intelligence against itself. Could it be? I gulped it down. Another pour, another gulp, another. The thoughts quieted, my mind sedated. Me, the physical me, also sedated. I sleep now. The hammers came pounding, thunderclaps calling. The waves crash and come to a halt in my senses. Screams come alive in the distance of my perception. A shrillness on the horizon. Darkness pervades. I woke to the reality of screams. Screams that replace the sounds of chaos in my dreams, my nightmares. I get to my feet, a groggy state. My head throbbing, not from the booze. That stuff was pure, but from the nightmare and the sound of screams. I amble over to the window and look for the source of the howling. My eyes feel the pain of adjusting to unexpected light. My head throbs in tandem. Light. Not daylight, no. It's night. The light of fire. Fire that dances. Fire that moves away from the origin. It fits and starts in individual offshoots, erratic offshoots. Limbs and tendrils that move independently of the main fireball that engulfs the surroundings. I rub my eyes and see more clearly. The mass of fire is a deluge that is taking over a street in the near distance. One road over. The dances of fire, the offshoots, they're not just fire. They're people. People on fire. The screams, such awful screams. I shut the window in an attempt to drown out the bone-chilling sounds, but it only results in dampening them. There's no escaping them. I try to distract myself, but my mind goes 10 to the dozen. Is this a horrific accident? Or the work of an individual? Someone purposefully causing this destruction, causing this torture, this malevolence. Fire on its own isn't listed as a weapon. Is this an extreme act of the cult? I don't want to believe it, but my gut is telling me that this is exactly what this is. I can't sleep any longer. I stay up and watch as the street in the distance burns to the ground, hoping and praying that it doesn't spread in my direction. Snow covers the edge of the windowsill. At least that's what I say to myself. Try to convince myself. The truth is that it's far too fine to be snow. Far too gray. I exhale sharply and blow it away. It floats up in the air, dances, breaks up, disappears. The fire seemingly out, and with its impending crisis quieted. I head to the shower to clean myself off and distill my dark, hopeless thoughts. It helps, at least momentarily. I'm able to take a deep breath without my chest feeling like it's being constricted by an unseen force. As I dress, I get a call from an unknown caller. Hello?
Nick?
Yeah, who's this?
It's Joe.
I'm stunned. Joe is a lifelong friend that I haven't seen or heard from in years. I feared he was dead. I recognize the voice, no mistake. I know this is Joe. Joe? I say, as a tear forms in tandem with a lump in my throat. Is it really you?
It's me, Nick. It's me.
I figured you were dead.
I thought you might think that. I've been laying low.
That's an understatement. Where the fuck have you been?
I'll get to that. I have to be quick.
What's going on, Joe?
The world is so fucked up right now. I've been living off the grid, away from prying eyes. Somewhere the AI can't control me, can't see me. We have a community out here. I want you to come join us.
A commune?
Of sorts. You might think I'm crazy, but you must know better than me how fucked up things are, right?
Yeah, you're preaching to the converted there.
Then maybe, just maybe, you'll want to be a part of a better life. It's not easy being off the grid, but it's sure as hell better than whatever world you're living in, mate.
I pause for a moment to take all this in. Here I am, on the phone, to an old friend I haven't heard from in years, who, to all intents and purposes, I feared had died, and he calls me up out of the blue to come and join him in his off-the-grid commune? Presumably in the middle of nowhere? Forgive me if I'm a little cynical. My thoughts quickly descend to a conspiratorial place where I wonder whether I'm actually speaking to Joe or an AI that is impersonating him in an attempt to draw me out. Nothing would surprise me now. Okay, Joe, hang on. 2 questions. 1, how do I get to you? And 2, how do I know this is really you I'm talking to?
Now we're talking. It's right for you to be suspicious. I wouldn't have survived had I not been. I guess you'll just have to trust that it's really me. In a world where AI can do anything, I can't prove that I'm not an AI. So you'll just have to go on faith. As far as how you'll get to me, I posted you a clue. It should arrive today. That should give you everything you need. It should also go some way to proving that I am your Joe.
A clue?
Yeah, you'll see. I can't be more specific. Now, I need to go. I have to destroy this device. You won't be able to contact me. I just hope you'll find me.
Wait! The line goes dead. Buoyed, if a little perturbed by my conversation with Joe, I move to action in an attempt to quiet the voices in my head. If Joe is legit about his intent and off-the-grid setup, then I'm going to need a few things. Even if he's not, then I've got no business staying around here, and I've got to get off the grid too, if I'm going to survive. I grab a large rucksack and begin filling it with all manner of clothes, food, camping equipment, a shit ton of nails, and any survival gear I can lay my hands on. I kneel on the bag to help compress things as I do it up. And it's as tightly packed as a weak-willed AA meeting with a free bar. As I fasten the bag, I get a notification that Steve Booth is live streaming a new episode of his podcast. This one I don't want to miss. I tune in.
Afternoon, folks. This is Steve Booth with another dose of the truth, bringing you the latest on the Great Cull.
Steve sounds far less effervescent than his usual bubbly self. Something's not right with him.
Now, if you were listening to me last time, you know I had a caller who gave me some serious food for thought, and it blew my mind. Well, let me tell you, I've been doing some serious thinking on this, and Laura, if you're listening, I think you're right. This is another live stream, and if you're listening live, then I'm open to new callers to discuss anything about these crazy times we're living in.
I missed the last chance, but I wasn't about to miss this one. I called in.
Ladies and gents, we have a caller on the line. Who am I speaking to, please?
I was on the air. Nick? I'm Nick.
Nick, hey Nick, nice to meet you. How are you faring in this Wild West?
Hey Steve, Thanks for taking my call. I'm doing okay. Must say, I've been better, though. Things are getting crazier and crazier out here.
I hear ya. What sort of crazy we talking about?
Last night was the worst. The worst I've seen. I pause for a second, realizing that I'm choking up while reliving the memory. There was a fire. Whole buildings on fire. People running around, screaming, burning, dying.
Shit, man. That sounds awful. Was the fire near you?
I saw it all from my apartment window. It was the next street over. Fortunately, it didn't get to me.
Wow, that's shocking. Do you think it was a part of the cull?
Yeah, I do. And it's the worst cull killing I've seen. I don't think fire is on the list of prohibited items. It's not a weapon as such. So I think some sadist has been drawn to all of a sudden do some serious destruction with it.
Oh, the dark depths we descend to, eh?
Steve says. Yeah, too right. But between that and what I heard from your last podcast had me thinking.
The AI agenda thing?
Yeah, that.
It's a real head scratcher, eh?
It makes sense, I say.
Yeah, I agree. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense to me, too.
And I've had a further thought about it, which makes it even more scary. I wait for Steve to reply. He doesn't, not initially, anyway. I hear him breathing on the other end of the line, and I can tell he's on edge now.
Go on.
Steve says, finally, a rasp to his voice. The whole premise of this cull has been that there is overpopulation, yeah? Well, what about if that's just a ruse? Something for us to believe in. Believe that there will be an end to this.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that maybe there is no end goal. Maybe the AI wants us to destroy ourselves and is just dangling a carrot that we'll never reach. We're so fucking dumb.
Hold on a sec there, Nick. You're saying that the AI have not only orchestrated this, but their agenda is to wipe out humanity completely by the cull carrying on with no end in sight?
Exactly. It's absolute genius on their part. They're playing us like a fiddle.
That's some scary shit right there. But hang on a sec. Why have some protected humans, government, etc.?
Maybe that's purposeful, to make us think that this is a government-led thing. Once we're down to the lower numbers, then it'll just be a free-for-all. I was thinking aloud, but it made sense to me. Of course, I could be wrong about this. It has only occurred to me today.
I don't know, Nick. I don't want to believe it. But you could be onto something.
I hear a loud bang on the line. And another. Steve? Steve, you okay?
I'm okay, brother, but it seems like someone is trying to break into my studio here.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, shit. Get the fuck out of here.
Steve, you got protection there?
Yeah, you hang on. Fuck.
Steve says. What is it?
There's loads of them. They got government IDs.
My heart sinks.
Untouchable.
Steve says. Oh God, I'm sorry, Steve. Self-defense, you can claim self-defense. You have to protect yourself.
I'm gonna try. I'm not gonna go down without a fight.
Cut your fucking stream!
A voice on Steve's side of the call screams. Someone or something doesn't want you speaking the truth, Steve. You gotta fight. I say. I hear a scream, followed by a loud thud. Another scream. Another thud. Steve? Steve! The line goes dead. The podcast stream goes dead. I can only assume Steve is dead along with it. Silenced. I sit in a ball, rocking, fetal. The shock of the last 24 hours is hitting me hard, and now the one voice that made sense to me amidst the chaos has been gagged. I slap myself across the face, scream at myself to get to my feet, which my body reluctantly agrees to. I hadn't noticed at the time, but during Steve's final podcast, something had been slipped through my door. I amble over to pick it up. An envelope. I tear it open to reveal a photograph. A photograph of me. A young me and Joe. In a forest of sorts. I recognize it. I know exactly where this is. This is where Joe wants me to find him. It's gotta be. I strap on my rucksack, grab my nail gun, and head out. With fresh eyes and a head full of despair, the outside world feels more treacherous. As I walk, I take care to look over my shoulder, ensuring I'm aware of my surroundings and potential threat at all times. All seems quiet for now. Until I see a man, maybe 100 yards ahead of me, running towards me at full pelt. He has his eyes set on me, as far as I can tell. He's after me. I need to defend myself. As he gets close, I hit the deck. I clip the man's legs and he goes hurtling over me. Before the man can right himself, I take the nail gun and swiftly deal the trio of nails into his temple. Any movement from the man ceases immediately. He's face down, so I roll him over to check whether he's lifeless. His eyes are wide but unmoving, vacant. His mouth is stuck in an O shape, leaving him looking like a blow-up doll. That's 17. I check his body. No signs of a weapon of any kind. I continue to check. Oh, shit. Oh, fucking shit. An ID badge. He's a teacher. He was a teacher. I don't think he was targeting me. I'm so fucked. I've got to get out of here. I've got to get to Joe, get off the grid. I get to my feet and rush to the Universal Credit Warehouse to get my last payment before I leave civilization behind. I haven't got time to lose. I jump to the front and hand over my ID and get my payment. I walk towards the exit, and as I do, a hand grabs my arm. I turn to see Bolt Gun John. Hey, I say. I don't see it until it's too late. The bolt against my forehead. The lights go out. Thank you so much to our author this week, Rob. And Rob, I just realized I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name. I Googled it, so I hope I did a good job. I hope that is the way you pronounce it. And for everyone out there listening, you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, all at Scare You to Sleep. If you'd like to follow me personally, you can follow me at Shelby B. Novak. And you can go check out my new hair color. I dyed my hair. If you have a story you'd like written, or if you have a story you'd like on the show, you can send it to scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. And last week I put in some submission guidelines, and I really appreciate it. I got someone who actually resent a submission because they didn't have it as a separate document. I will say this might be a little confusing. I will write these out soon. If it's a true story, you can have it as a separate document, but if it's kind of a lot of the true stories are shorter, so that's okay to have in the body of the email, but it's the, like tonight's story. Tonight's story was very long, in a good way. That's no shade. But imagine all 7,000 something words in the body of an email. It would just get messy. So if you have a true story, feel free to leave it in the body if it's a shorter one. But for my fictional story submitters, please send it as a separate document within the email. You know what I'm saying. I think I'm making sense. Again, I'll write these out so it's a little less confusing, but that's scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. And of course, no pressure, but if you'd like ad-free episodes, you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/scareyoutosleep. And for as little as $1 a month, you can get ad-free episodes. And for $3 and up, you can get bonus episodes. That plus my eternal gratitude for your generosity. Please go check out my merch as well, if you'd like, of course. Again, no pressure for any of this. I just like making you all aware of what's going on. I got an email from Fourth Wall, my merch site, and the denim jacket, the black denim jacket with the embroidery that says "Scare You to Sleep" on the breast. That is back in stock. It was out of stock. At least the extra large, I believe, was definitely out of stock, and I think some of the other sizes were too. But that is back in stock. So if you had your eye on a black denim jacket with "Scare You to Sleep" embroidered on it, then you can go check that out. And remember, with this new website or this new merch site, when you order merch, I get to send you a personalized video. It's kind of like Cameo a little bit. So that's been a lot of fun. So please, go check out the merch. I actually just got the apron, one of the aprons, or two different aprons. One of the aprons, one of the glasses, and a t-shirt. And I'm going to be taking pictures of those soon. Hopefully this weekend I'll get around to it so you can kind of see them on me. They're really great quality. I'm very happy with the quality of this particular website. So yeah, go check out my merch. There is a link in the show notes, and there's a link through my link tree too as well. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? Any housekeeping? I should really keep a list of these things. I don't think so. Oh, I'm on the latest SCP archives. L is for Lamentation. So go check that out. I actually did quite a few SCP archives this year, and there's one coming up in particular that's pretty brutal, but I had a lot of fun doing the voice acting for it. I can't wait for that one to come out. But this one was also very fun. I'm doing my customer service voice, so that's a lot of fun. So yeah, go check that out. And I know a lot of you are also fans of Creepy, and John Grills is the narrator for that particular episode. So again, that's L for Lamentation is the name of the episode. I'm also on the latest Dead Space episode. Again, I did a lot of Dead Space too. I've been very fortunate to be asked to do so much voice acting lately. Again, it's a thing that I never thought I'd do, and I'm loving it. I have so much fun. I feel like I'm pretty good at it, and getting to play so many different types of characters has been just a good time. It's been a good time, and it feels really good to be asked to be a part of these incredible projects like Dead Space and SCP Archives. I mean, they're great. And then I'm also a part of a new show that's coming up soon. I think it was going to be announced today, and then they had some issues, so I'm not going to tell you what it is yet because I don't know if I'm allowed to. And wouldn't it be awesome if I'm the only one in the whole network who spoils it? So, but I'll keep you updated on that because that's another show that I did a lot of voice work on. If you like to listen to this old, it's a fun nickname or like a fun name for a voice. How do you refer to that? I don't know. Anyway, I'm tired. Oh, baking this week. I know you would like to know. I made a quiche. I made my first quiche. It was so good. Pretty basic quiche recipe. I used some pie dough I had in my fridge already. I posted a picture on my Instagram stories a couple days ago. I did asparagus, broccoli, onion, red pepper flakes, and I did a mix of mozzarella and white sharp cheddar. I think that's all that went into it. It was pretty basic, but it was so good. Oh my God, so delicious. So much easier than I ever thought a quiche would be. I don't know why. A quiche is one of those recipes I just was not intimidated by, but I was like, I never bothered with it because I thought it would be really complicated, and it's really not, surprisingly. So that was very good. I also made naan for the first time. Again, I made a joke about that on Twitter, so go check out my Twitter for just the funniest stuff ever. I'll just tell you here. I made a joke and I said that it's, living alone sucks sometimes because when you have a joke, there's no one here to roll their eyes. And when I was making my naan and I had like the yeast, and the sugar and the water proofing, I looked at my cat and I was like, I guess you could call this a non-starter. But I'm here all week, folks. So she definitely rolled her eyes at me and walked away. Was like, no, that was not funny. And let's see, I made naan, I made quiche. I did a bunch of cooking this week, but it's nothing super fun. I made like a salad for the week and stuff like that. So but yeah, that was my baking. Naan. Oh, it was cheese stuffed naan too. I used too much salt and they were pretty ugly. It was my first time, so I didn't post any pictures. I didn't want to insult an entire nation of people because they did not look great. And again, I used too much salt, but they're fine. This might be something so it's fine if you hear this and you're like, this is part of your culture and you think that I'm so wrong, or maybe this is something that people already do and I'm doing the thing where I'm like, I invented this thing and it's not, it's been around for like 1,000 years. I don't think that I invented it, but because it was too salty, I would heat it up and put honey on it. And it was like this really great balance of salty and sweet, especially with the cheese. And I love knafe, which I could be pronouncing wrong. Again, I looked up the pronunciation. I really do try. I don't do the thing where I'm like, I'm just going to wing it. I really looked at the pronunciation. But knafe, I think is how you say it. It might be pronounced differently depending on where you have it. But that's one of my favorite desserts. And so it kind of gave me knafe vibes. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about all the cultures I've insulted in this brief window of bake talk. I think that's all I did this week. Pretty sure. Next week, expect that new guided nightmare and another thrilling episode of Scare You to Sleep. I think that's all for tonight. All right, go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.